Before we begin this podcast, please be advised that the following episode contains language that some listeners may find offensive and inappropriate. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not reflect the views of the podcast producers. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the final piece of Trystan Westrip's story. Where we last left off, Trystan had brutally killed an old lady and stolen her truck. We join up with Trystan, now a fugitive on the run, racing against the time it would take for Mary's body to be discovered. The hunt for Trystan was on, and we'll discover just how that went on this episode of Voices of a Killer.
So after you finish her off, where do you go first? Do you go in the house and ransack the house?
Yeah, pretty much. I go and try it. I search everything that she owns essentially for anything that I can use of value to help me survive.
What's the most valuable thing you took from her house?
In her wallet, she had $900 in cash.
Okay.
That was about the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
Other than that, I got like coolers and stuff like that. I got survival stuff. She didn't have a flat screen TV or anything like that.
After you kill her, how long did it take for you to dip out? How long did you stay after killing her?
Probably about 30 minutes. After I got done looting the house, I had spread gasoline and lighter fluid all around the house, and I took a roll of toilet paper and I dipped it in gasoline. I took a match, one of those long, big matches for starting grills and stuff, and I lit it, and I set it in that gasoline. That's like a time bomb. I also turned on all of her ovens. I blew out the pilot flame and turned on all the ovens full gas. I thought it was going to be like an explosion from the movies.
Yeah. And you lit it?
Yeah. And then after I lit it, I jumped in the truck and I drove off to the point to where I was far away from the house, but I could still see the house.
Did it catch fire?
No. And I was scared to go back because I didn't want it to like suddenly blow up in my face or something.
So where'd you go after that?
I went to the nearest town, which was Marshfield, and I went to a Taco Bell, and I went inside, went to the bathroom, checked and see if I was cool. I had already changed clothing by this time, changed shoes. I washed myself up a little bit, and I went and ordered some food.
But now you're in this lady's car. So now they're probably going to have a, all points bulletin on this vehicle here pretty shortly. You get Taco Bell, you leave there. Where do you go after that?
Well, so whenever I was at the Taco Bell place, I got the food and I went outside to the parking lot to eat the food and give some food to my dog. And I was backing up the truck, and I happened to look out the window, and I seen this woman, or it wasn't a woman, it was like a girl. She like made like a blink or something like that to me. So I put the truck back in drive, got out, and went and said something to her. Don't advertise if you're not selling. And she came and got in the vehicle with me.
Holy shit. So this girl literally just hit on you minutes after you murdered an elderly woman. Is that right?
Yep.
She gets in the vehicle with you. What did she say? What do y'all do?
I drive over to the local smoke shop was across the street, and I send her inside with some money. And she goes inside. She buys me like 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes, some packs of chew, a bong, a whole bunch of rolling papers, and a whole bunch of blunts.
Did you tell her what you did?
No.
This is crazy.
So by this point in time, I had literally shut off what I did. It was like it hadn't even happened.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, just kind of hanging out with somebody right after that. So yeah. So she gets in the car and y'all go and get a bunch of stuff, like whatever. What do y'all do after that? Y'all hang out for quite a while?
No, I actually go back to the parking lot, and after she got me all the stuff, I pretty much kicked her out of the vehicle, told her to leave.
Okay. Where'd you go?
I went and I started trying to go down essentially like back roads to try to find somewhere to park and spend the night.
Were you able to spend the night?
No, I found a place to park, but once I got to where I was at and I was actually parked and alone, I decided that I wanted to go back to Taco Bell to try to get back with that woman. So I started the vehicle and went back in. Before I had parked the vehicle, though, I had stopped at somebody's house, and I seen a Trump sign outside their house, so I thought they'd be friendly, so I pulled into their driveway, and it happened to be a retired cop. And he shined a mag light at me and started yelling at me. And I told him I was lost. I needed directions for Canada. I guess he could tell that I was high or doing something crazy because he decided to call the cops. And that right there is what put the vehicle on alert.
Yeah. So where'd you go after that?
I decided to go into Marshfield. I went to this, it's called Camp Arrowhead in Marshfield, right? And I pulled up into the camp shack, like where people are supposed to go check in, and there was nobody there. So I went inside and I stole a pistol, and I was going to steal some more stuff, but I seen somebody's vehicle, so I ran back outside and got back in the vehicle. Yeah. So now I have a pistol, and it was loaded one in the chamber.
Where'd you go?
I decided to drive into town. On my way into town is when I got flashed by a cop, because by this time, the red Dakota vehicle with a whole bunch of stuff in the back of it had been flagged.
You took off running?
Nope.
You pulled over?
Pretty much at that point in time, I was resigned to the fact that what I did was horrible, and I essentially just gave up. This was whenever, like, my humanity was kind of to sink in at this point. I knew that I had messed up really bad.
Did they get out guns drawn, knowing exactly that they had a murderer in that vehicle?
They did not know that they had a murderer in the vehicle. They just had a suspicious vehicle.
Okay. Did they cuff you up on that?
Yeah, by this time they hadn't linked the now crime scene with me in the vehicle. Now I want to bring in an important factor because I almost did this. Right, so whenever this man pulls out with gunpoint, he tells me to stick my hands out the window, so I do. He comes and approaches the door. When he holsters his pistol, and he had his hand on my right arm. And whenever he opened the door, he had his left hand on my left hand. My dog jumped out the vehicle, and he turned his back to me. And I almost grabbed that gun and shot him.
Wow!
But
the cop,
like it was like one. It was one of those things where I almost felt like I needed to do it, wanted to do it, and stuff like that, but I resisted.
That was a Springfield, Missouri police officer?
No, it was actually a Marshfield police officer.
And you think you could have took that cop's life if you wanted to?
Absolutely. He turned his back on me. I could have pulled the gun and shot him right there. But like I was telling you, I almost did it, but I resisted.
Yeah. So you get taken in. And when do you find out that you're actually charged with murder?
So this begins the scandalous stuff and the illegal activity that they started to do. Right, so as soon as they pulled me out the vehicle, he had no idea what was going on. All he knew that the vehicle was messed up. Well, I had told him that what I had done, I told him my name, right? And so he put my name over the intercom as a runaway juvenile. Well, around the time that they're doing that, they linked that vehicle to the crime scene, right? So they told that cop to hold me and that Greene County sheriffs were on their way. So he puts me in the back of the vehicle. Not too long afterwards, Jim Arnott, the sheriff of Greene County Jail, shows up with another sheriff. He goes and talks to this cop who's outside this cop car. The cop comes and gets in the vehicle and turns off the recording equipment. This is all on video. This was exposed to the judge and everything. He gets back out of the vehicle and goes and gives a nod to the cop. Sheriff Jim Arnott then gets in the vehicle with me, and he tells me that he's a high-ranking official in Greene County Jail, and if I tell him everything that happened, he'll let me go for free.
What did you say to that?
I told him everything.
Yeah. They just tricked you into basically confessing?
Yep. And they tricked my dad, my stepdad. They told my stepdad that I was being questioned about running away from my house. So he comes in and signs all the paperwork that signs my right over as a juvenile, and I sign the paperwork too, and they do a full interview on camera.
So the sheriff, Jim Arnott, gets you to confess, basically?
Yeah, and then he gets me to confess again on camera.
Although the outskirts of Strafford were remote, the tight-knit community kept a vigilant eye out for one another. Mary's neighbor first noticed that something was amiss when he saw a strange green Subaru sitting in her driveway. Concerned, he checked on Mary and was met with the smell of propane wafting out of the house. Inside, the house had been ransacked, its contents strewn about, and the gas stove left on. Responding detectives confirmed that Mary was missing, and the intruder had tried to set her house alight. Identifying the suspect was straightforward, as the Subaru in Mary's driveway was registered to Republic resident Trystan Westrip. By coincidence, Trystan had just been pulled over by a highway patrolman for an unrelated incident. Trystan describes his arrest almost with relief. This was the point that he finally vanquished control, realizing that his plans to flee Missouri were never going to materialize, and he had the blood of Mary's murder on his hands. However, Trystan also alleges that his confession was elicited unlawfully. He counts the sheriff turning the tape off, then promising full immunity to Trystan if he confessed to the truth. Taking the sheriff at his word, Trystan told the whole truth of Mary's murder without any reservation. This trickery gave police enough evidence to file their charges against Trystan. Now, with his confession in hand, they secured the means to seek the maximum sentence against him. Once Trystan was arrested, national news stations picked up the scandalous crime. Stories like this one from Ozarks First circulated about the teenage killer and the bloody murder of a harmless old lady.
Details have emerged in the stabbing death case of 80-year-old Mary Shisler. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Keelman.
Thanks for joining us here for our 10 o'clock news. I'm David Oliver. 17-year-old Trystan Westrip from Republic was certified as an adult today in a juvenile hearing, and he's been charged now with first-degree murder. Our Daniel Shedd is here with the story up first tonight. Daniel?
That's right, David and Jennifer. Trystan Westrip was 16 years old when he left his house on October 21st. After an argument with his parents, he drove north on back roads looking for abandoned houses. That's when he arrived at the residence of Mary Shisler. And just a warning, what you're about to see may be disturbing to some viewers. Trystan Westrip led law enforcement back to the body of 80-year-old Mary Shisler in a field not far from her house in Strafford. According to the probable cause statement, Westrip pulled up to the residence around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on October 21st, 2016, after realizing his destination of Canada was not feasible in his 1995 Subaru Impreza. The 80-year-old woman offered the juvenile help and invited Westrip inside her home. That's when he pulled out a knife, stabbing the elderly lady multiple times in the temple. Westrip admitted to carrying her body outside the home over a fence before depositing it into a field. He then tried to make his way back to the home and attempted to burn it down to hide any evidence.
It's a hard decision for everybody because, we don't relish these kinds of cases.
Bill Prince is a family court administrator and chief juvenile officer in Greene County.
When we start talking about serious homicides, serious rapes or sodomies, then you start to think, well, maybe we have somebody here who's a little bit more of a criminal thinker and things like that, and maybe they're not going to respond to, what most other kids would respond to.
Now, the juvenile court typically deals with delinquent cases from birth up until age 16. However, in Missouri, all first-degree murder cases are required by law to file a petition to dismiss that case and have them tried as adults.
The hearing today is not about the juvenile's guilt or innocence. The real issue today is whether or not do we have services that can help him in the juvenile system, or have we run out of services and he really needs to go into the criminal justice system.
Now, Trystan Westrip is currently being held in the Greene County Jail without bond on charges of first-degree murder, armed criminal action, tampering with a motor vehicle, and attempted arson.
So you're 16 years old and you're being accused of murder. So now you probably can't go to adult jail. So you go to some juvenile hall first.
Yeah, they sent me I was in juvenile for about 6 months.
Okay. Yep. You went to juvenile hall. So as soon as you turned of age, they put you in regular jail, adult jail?
Yeah, about 3 months after my birthday, they had the certification hearing that certified me as an adult.
What was it like going into county jail with all those, these are people that have, lived the life of crime, some of them, and, they've done prison time, and some of them are down there for murder, and that's, they're pretty hardened criminals. What was that like for you?
Well, I had already been warned by people in juvie not to tell people I was in there for because I had killed an old lady. So I told people I was in prison for, or I was being charged with armed robbery.
Yeah, that wasn't going to work for you very long, did it?
No. Ironically, I was on the news, so people had seen who I was, but people who were gang affiliated and stuff like that had pulled up on me and essentially put me under their wing to the start of my bit.
Yeah. Are you in a gang right now?
No.
So whenever you go to trial, did you plead guilty? Did you plead not guilty? Did you take a plea?
So once they changed the law, that all all they ever offered me my entire time in Greene County was life on second degree.
Life without or life
And
with?
Life with on second degree.
So did you take a plea? Did you plead guilty or did you plead not guilty?
Whenever they changed the law that said juveniles only have to do 15 years flat at second degree or below, I pled guilty to life on second degree murder.
So you pled guilty, and what did they sentence you to? Life with?
Yeah, life with parole.
When is your parole date?
My first parole date is December 31st or sometime in December in 2031.
Have you ever gotten any kind of backlash from the victim's family?
There was one incident in Greene County to where somebody had said that they had been paid money by somebody to come and hurt me really badly because of what had happened.
Did they?
No. He actually ended up being my friend.
So they never, the victim's family wasn't in court?
Yeah. There was, the only victim's family was, there was a lady.
Okay. So did they read a victim's impact statement?
Yeah, one person told me that I was like a sick dog and I should be killed and never redeemed again.
Right. Do you think if you would have went back, you would have lied and said you didn't do it?
Honestly, to now, I've come to the point since I've been down that I believe that my life happened for a reason and that the only way that I was ever going to find God was being able to put in this situation. Because left to my own desires and the streets, I would never stop getting high. I literally had to go through everything that I've had to in my life since then, at that time and since then, to be able to get to where I'm at now.
Looking back, Trystan reflects on how his dark past has shaped him into the man he is today. However, navigating the courtroom and the prison system has been challenging. After negotiating a plea deal, Trystan pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Considering the severity of his offense, some might view this sentence as lenient, but Trystan's age played a big role in the sentence. Trystan was certified to stand trial as an adult. However, the maximum penalty available, even to a certified juvenile, is life with parole eligibility. That means that Trystan Westrip has an opportunity to appeal for parole after 2031. By that time, years will have slipped by and Trystan will be a 31-year-old man, far removed from the teenager who once killed a lady who kindly offered him help. As time advances and Trystan's brain develops into maturity, he has already gained perspective on his actions. Trystan also tells me that he's undergone a religious transformation while in prison that's given him newfound hope and purpose. It's this transformation that might inspire Trystan to rehabilitate his life, demonstrate his remorse, and possibly reintegrate back into society one day. Before winding down our conversation, I gave Trystan the final word. We'll hear his reflections after the break.
Do you feel like you belong out of prison for that?
Do I feel like I belong out of prison right now?
Not right now. Well, just in general, anytime.
I believe that I was under a lot of psychological factors that led to me being...
I asked if you think you should be out of prison or not.
Yes.
You do? So, do you compare yourself to people in there with crimes that have life without?
No.
Because there's a lot of people in there that have crimes that are, not quite as vicious as yours, and they get a life without. There's no chance of they'll die in prison. And I hear these stories quite often. Now, your crime was committed at 16 years old, so which really gives you a lot of leeway, and which is probably why you got the sentence that you got, have a chance of being out. Because if you think about it, it's really a pretty vicious crime. Do you ever have bad dreams or anything about it?
I used to, until I asked for forgiveness from God, and those dreams went away.
And you said you did kind of have a religious turnaround in there?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I got exposed to it around 2023, or I guess not, in 2022, and K2 is rampant here. So I was an avid drug user for quite a while, and I just finally figured out that once I stopped lying, I no longer needed to do drugs. I could find my connection with God. Since then, I haven't even thought about doing drugs.
Do you think when you get out, you'll be a productive citizen, or do you think that prison's not going to make some kind of mark on you where you get out, you're too difficult?
No, I've already adopted the mindset of a responsible person.
Do you have a relationship with your mother, stepfather, and your father?
Yeah, I have a relationship with my grandparents, my biological parents, and my step-parents.
How old are you right now?
24.
Wow, 24. And how old will you be whenever you go up for parole?
31.
Man, 16 years old. It's crazy, man. I wish that you would have never run across that drug, because I feel, there's always something that most people, I know there's killers out there that are completely sober and they do crazy shit, but most of them, man, they have some kind of a mechanism, some substance or past, or, you know what I mean? So, Trystan, I appreciate you letting me get your story. I know that it's probably tough trying to go over all the little stuff that's you probably try to forget about, but it's a big, it's a big deal, man. It's, is there anything else you want to say before we head out?
One part of the fact is that drug that I was on, they use that drug now legally as prescription to mute people's emotions.
Wow. Serious?
Yep. If you look up that dextromorphin chemical agent.
Yeah.
That chemical agent is literally in drugs that neutralize people's emotions.
Yeah, I actually wrote it down because I did want to look at, but that's crazy. I'm glad you brought that up too. Yeah, it literally turned me into a robot that day who was disassociated from the world that I was in. Yeah, it's almost like a little cocktail of different things that drove you to, act the way you did. The turbulent childhood, them kind of pinning you down as the bad guy at school, and I don't know, man. The drugs, it's horrible, but Trystan, I appreciate you opening up to me. I hope everything works out for you, and I hope if you do get a parole, I hope you do the right thing, okay?
Yep.
On the next episode of Voices of a Killer.
So, Ray, if you're the person that's not killed this person, that means that there's another killer out there. Who is it?
I don't know who done it. All I can say is I didn't pull no triggers, so.
Did they ever recover the murder weapon?
Nope, they don't have no weapon. They made up some motives that didn't even have no merit to it. They just threw a case together.
The guy that supposedly drove by also said that he saw you or someone standing over the person shooting that person, finishing them off.
Now, tell me, how could he see that? And he said he was going 35 miles an hour.
Did he point you out in the courtroom that was you that stood over him and shot?
I've never been pointed out ever. Nobody never said Ray Johnson did anything.
I want to thank Trystan for sharing his story with us today. His ability to be open and honest is what makes this podcast so special. That's a wrap on this episode of Voices of a Killer. A big shout out to Sonic Futures, who handled the production, audio editing, music licensing, and promotion of this podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, make sure to visit our website at voicesofakiller.com. There you can find previous episodes, transcripts, and additional information about the podcast. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach new listeners. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to share more stories with you in the future. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Toby, and we'll see you next time on Voices of a Killer.